Smelters last year, especially if you're looking at August and September of last year, because the copper ore was such in light supply, Steve, they were actually recycling copper. Right, so it's a structural issue that they're kind of seeing. They recycled copper, but at the end of the day, they're not consuming it as much. I think the China story is still going to be something that does come to fruition. I know that there's definitely some risks that are out there, but I do believe that once that story kind of really runs, I think copper is going to be the big winner for that. And if you're looking at copper on a longer term time frame, you look at it over the last 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, copper is usually one of the only commodities that triple top and then break down. It's usually not a one cycle and then everything's said and done, kind of like oil. Oil usually has like a major boom bust cycle of a year or 2 years, and then you see it pull back to the downside. Copper is not that way. It comes up, continues to retest, it will retest again, and either it's going to try to break out or it'll fail. So we're at the second form, going into the third form of this cycle.
Right, and you talk about how maybe there's a catch-up trade there. It hasn't worked like the others have. Crude oil starting to work. We're talking about natural gas. Precious metals are working. I don't see why copper looks any different from gold, when we look back in a few years.
Yeah, I think it's the application of it. So gold has the structural buyers of a lot of these reserve banks kind of getting into it. And copper, once again, has a structural supply shortage right now, but eventually it will be. The thought process is eventually that copper ore is going to kind of replenish itself in the market. Now, it kind of also depends on this build out of infrastructure here in the United States as well. I mean, if you're going to have the AI story, the data center story, you're going to need to also have copper. If you're going to have the build out of small modular nuclear reactors, you're going to need to have copper. If you're going to have a lot of these bigger projects in the utility space and the technology space, you're going to need to have it. But the real gold, if you want to say it like that, the real gold for copper is China. You cannot have that demand slide off. And that's kind of why it's been a little bit more depressed than gold. And it's a global reflationary story too. So if you kind of have the inflationary fears kind of subside, copper is going to also get hit with that. And the same thing with silver.